Hello people, in this video we are going to see how to create this volume settings menu in Unreal Engine. This video is the second video in the options menu series. Pre-Requisites, the custom C++ game user settings which we created in the last video. Section 1, updating game user settings. So basically we'll be creating 4 float widgets as we will be creating 4 volume channels for us. The channels are master, ambience, SFX and UI. We'll be configuring the getter and setter for this and exposing it to blueprint so that we can use it further. Section 2, Setup Test Audio Settings UMG. Now we'll be setting up the test widget similar to what we did in the previous video. The only purpose of this is to show what will be the end result in a final game. If you have an existing setup, you can use this, else you can follow this section. I have sped up this section. You can slow the video and watch it at your convenience. Section 3, Creating Custom Slider UMG. We'll be creating a custom slider widget so that we can reuse the common functionality. The major components of this widget will be a label, a slider and an editable text. You can design it anyway. I'll be speeding up this section again as this is me mainly designing the UI. Section 4. Adding logic to custom slider UMG. Now that the UI design is done, we'll be setting up the logic. Before setting up the logic, we would require some variables. These are mainly what will be the default value, what will be the step size, what will be the range of the slider, and what will be the level of the slider text. We also expose these variables as instance editable so that when we use this custom widget in another widget, we can easily set them up. I'll be creating a simple update value function so that I don't need to update the value for the edit text and the slider separately, as both of them at all point of time should have the same values. An event dispatcher is required so that when this custom widget is used in the parent widget, we should know that the value has changed either via the slider or the editable text, and we should perform various operations on that, which is mainly saving the values and changing the sound levels or volume in the sound class. For the edit text, it is a bit complex as we have to check if the value is in range, as user can type any value or even alphanumerics. We ensure that the value is in range. If it is in range, we simply update the values, and if it is not, we ensure that if the value exceeds the range, we cap it within the range. This can be done in various ways, but I have used a simple boolean for this purpose. After everything is done, we simply call the onValueChange so that this triggers the binded function in the parent widget. Section 5. Creating audio settings UMG. Now that the custom slider widget is done, all we need to do is instantiate it in the parent widget. We'll instantiate it 4 times and label them as master, ambience, SFX and UI respectively. We'll also be exposing them as variables as we'll be using that in the widget graph. Section 6. Adding logic to audio settings UMG. The logic for the parent audio settings widget graph is pretty simple. We bind certain events to the on value change we created for the custom slider, and we just use the code we wrote in C++ to set the volume levels. And then we apply those settings. Also, when we have said, we should ensure that when the values are getting loaded, the values should get loaded when we construct the widget. So upon construction, we'll get the values which are saved in the config file and we'll overwrite them in the update value. Section 7. Small bug fix. There was a small bug in the setup because I mistakenly set up the master volume twice. So the order should be ambience, master, SFX and UI. Section 8. Saving values and UI preview. So if you go to the path shown here, you can see that the custom values which we created in C++ are getting saved. And this is me previewing that if we do value changes, they are getting saved in the config file and they are easily accessible. Section 9. Audio assets setup. Now we'll be importing the audio assets which I have prepared. They are mainly background music, SFX and UI sounds. We set up the sound classes in such a way that the master controls the parent level audio for each. Then we create a sound mix and assign all the 4 classes, as we'll be using that to push and set up the sound mix. This is me configuring some sound cues. I just do a quick test here to see that the audios are playing. Section 10. Audio setup in custom level UMG. In here, I configure the UI sound to be played when we perform the value change function on the slider. Section 11. Binding sound classes with UMG. Now that the sound is playing at the appropriate positions, we just have to control the volumes. So for that, what we'll do is we'll get the sound mix class override. We'll set up the sound mix class which we created and provide the specific sound class for ambience, for master, and so on. As this is a repetitive step, I compress this into a function. Section 12. In editor preview. So now you can see this working perfectly fine in the editor, and at the beginning of the video I showed you the same thing working fine in a packaged build. So that was all from me. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for further videos in the options menu series.